Welcome back to Thursday evening with Joe and Joe. We got hopefully some interesting things coming on tonight. We have one of the individuals who's running for the county clerk in Bonner County. He's going to stop by. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on up north with regards to housing, infrastructure, and growth, and whether or not it's good for Northern Idaho or not. It's one of those things that you're curious about because we're always talking about open land, and that usually means developing rural communities into urban communities, or in some cases, like we get here in the state of Idaho, suburban sprawl. An awful lot of, quarter acre, half acre lots with people just occupying space, building out as opposed to building up. And usually this happens to fall into areas that are considered livable. They got easy access to water. They got easy access to amenities, easy access to roads, rather than trying to rewire the big cities into something that wasn't exactly considered planned growth at the time they were initially built. You're now looking at a situation where you're doing not so planned growth in a place that hasn't been built yet. So hopefully Hutchins will be able to stop by a little bit later on and talk about some of the things that are going on with that.
And that's really honestly on me. I forgot Pacific time zone is in the North Idaho. So it's 5:30 there. I told him 6:30, but I was under, the guise of Mountain Standard Time as.
So you're saying this is about to turn into a 2-hour show tonight?
No, I messaged him. He said he'd be on shortly. So hopefully he can pull up here shortly. Yeah, I always forget that the northern tip of Idaho is just completely in Pacific time zone, and I don't know why. I never think about it, but yeah. So
James, I know you're an expat. Where is it? 7:30 in that's opposite side Australia, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's early in the morning.
Man. It is. So
but yeah, no, it's a very interesting subject, and like a little bit about I know about it is like the public infrastructure is really big on it, because just like everybody else, we love our lower taxes, but at what point are we cutting off our even public services like fires, ambulances, police officers, road building, these kind of things that our taxes are paying for or should be paying for at the very least for communities?
Well, it's one of those things. It's also an interesting mix when you take a look at the back and forth that goes on. An awful lot of times counties will allow a certain amount of growth, and everybody moves into the county because they don't want to pay the taxes for the city. So they're moving into an unincorporated area, but they're moving in close enough to the city limits that they expect to be able to use all of the city amenities that the city dwellers pay for with their taxes. So
now what do you know about this Aviemore? Because I'm on the edge of some of these issues, these kind of more specific issues, but it seems like that kind of deal was taken into account with Aviemore as well, because they want to be incorporated into like Eagle and Eagle services, but it's over the hill, like,
right. Well, and that's one of the things. We got a couple that were initially incorporated outside of city limits that are still considered inside Boise right now. Hidden Springs is one. Aviemore is another one for Eagle. You're looking at expansions out in Kuna, some of the neighborhoods out that direction that weren't initially in Kuna, but CUNA had to expand in order to integrate them into services because the new developments weren't able to sustain and pay for sewer and water all on their own. So you start getting these mixes where the county will allow certain things to go in without a real zoning plan. And then when the city incorporates or annexes the community, they have to play catch up. They have to go in and take care of the rest of the details. That's one of those things that you look at when state legislatures, county commissioners, and municipal mayors and city councils all of a sudden end up into this debate as to who owns what, who gets to be responsible for what, and under what situations you're able to control certain things. It's the same thing when Washington, D.C. decides to get involved in how the states do business. It just keeps cascading down. A lot of it depends on what happens at specific levels and whether or not the relationship, the different stages of government or different levels of government are cooperative or antagonistic. So like one of the things that we've watched happen with the mayor in Boise is the mayor's actually received significant federal funding to assist certain projects. Now, these are short-term projects, short-term funding. She gets a big windfall of money in order to spend on city developments. And then she has to maintain a tax revenue to sustain the improvements after the Kickstarter money dries up. We take a look at what happened. Remember when Duke Energy was moving in and they were going to put in the huge solar farm over in Elmore County?
Is that the one right past the stage shop, that huge solar farm there?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
It's out there in Elmore County. Well, it's right there on the border between Elmore and Ada, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But Duke Energy went in and made an agreement for the lease of the land because it's public land. It's BLM land. It's our land. And now it's owned by Duke Energy. And Duke Energy, of course, was selling the power to Idaho Power. And in turn, Idaho Power was selling it at a increased rate to Boise City and the airport in order to sell it to a reduced rate to Micron and Meta. So it's like Idaho is paying extra for power, or Boise was paying extra for power because the mayor got this windfall money in order to help kickstart this Duke Energy project on Idaho land. Yeah, it's a bit of a boondoggle when you step back and you take a look at it. And then you still have to deal with the issues related to the biome destruction, right? James, power to the corp, the corporation's doing a significant more with everything they got going on because of that. Now, one of the things that we're looking at, especially across the nation right now, is the issue with data centers.
Yes.
We got Meta coming in here in CUNA. They're still building it out. If you watch the Ranch podcast with Matt, he actually did an interview with Mayor McLean recently, where she was talking about taxation, revenue, as well as how certain money gets spent. Hey, how you doing, Spencer?
Setting up the video. So she was talking about the Meta data centers as well.
Not necessarily the Meta, but you listen to Gannon, one of our state legislators, with regards to Meta, and we went and our state legislature in their infinite wisdom, went and removed the sales tax on the computers. So the servers that go into the server farm that is Meta are all tax free, and they're tax free in perpetuity. So as they go in and they replace them, they get to replace them tax free.
Interesting.
Now that's a significant amount of state revenue right there, considering the amount of servers that they have to run for the server farms out at Meta. Now it's the same thing. They put a property tax cap on the entire Micron facility. Micron's currently $1 billion plus facility out there, in Southwest Boise, and it is inside Boise limits. It's in county limits, but they put a $400 million cap on what's a $1 billion facility. So they're not even paying taxes on half the value of the property that's out there.
60%.
Right.
It's insane. It's so crazy to me. I'm really happy with seeing like a lot of these people standing up against the AI data centers like everywhere I go. It's been
Spencer up north is probably going to have to look at dealing with some of that up there too. All the water rights up there between Spokane, Bonner County, and Kootenai County. All just waiting for a big data center to come up there to take all that water to cool its engines while it's doing lifetime surveillance on everybody in our new 15-minute cities.
Yeah.
How you doing, Spencer?
I'm doing great, but I was more looking forward to subsidizing all that through my electricity and my water costs.
You just missed our brief comment about that. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. We're paying extra for electricity and water just so that the data centers and Micron can pay less. What we'll be paying 50 cents for, they'll be paying 10 cents for. And it's all because the people who own Duke Energy and Idaho Power own the data centers.
Of course they do.
So, of course, they want, they're going to charge us extra in order for the data centers to get it cheaper. That's the way they've decided to subsidize it. It's one of the great things about everything being publicly available through the New York Stock Exchange.
Well,
same 12 people. Go ahead, Spencer.
This continuing fleecing of everybody in every little possible way is just, if everybody really understood just how much they were getting fleeced on a daily basis by all these little pinpricks, their heads would explode. Every little tax that they throw at us, every little subsidy that we get stuck paying for. The amount of fraud, waste, and abuse in our government is just staggering. And like I've been harping on property taxes forever. We don't need property taxes. There's plenty of states that don't have property taxes. Idaho does not need property taxes. I think it's a 1.5 or a 1.7 increase in sales tax. No more property taxes for anybody. But they won't do it because they get too much out of it. They were able to hand out too many favors with it. So.
Oh yeah. Idaho taxation. We're one of the few states that actually use all three legs of the taxation: sales tax, property tax, income tax. And in prior years, the distribution was set up in such a way that each one of those legs covered roughly 1/3 of the revenue that the state brought in order to turn around and give to, friends of the state. However you wanted to balance that out, that ended up being that way.
In the meantime, we've let the federal government keep 64% of our land that we could be using and generating tax revenue off of that should have been given to us back when we became a state and we had a legislature and we had a constitution. That contract or that compact still exists. Nobody enforces it. That land is ours. Give it back. It's ours. You promised to give it back to us when we became a state. They didn't do it, and we just let them. We just let them get away with it. I don't understand that.
And it's an interesting discussion. Reason why is because out here in the West, we talk about public lands and public access. Being able to do multi-use land through BLM, through the federal through wilderness, through state properties, being able to go in and actually utilize all that. Back in the 70s when the EPA kicked in, EPA came in and all of a sudden we weren't able to do certain things with the wilderness land. We were farming, we were replanting, we were reforesting everything we harvested. We were, as the timber came down, more timber went in. We had, logging mills, logging facilities all up and down along every major waterway in the state of Idaho. We're running logs down to the mills, using natural terrain. And all of a sudden the EPA comes along and boom, it's gone.
And now the logging that we have left in the state's all controlled basically by one family.
Yeah.
It's IFG pretty much controls everything. I mean, to the point where they're, they don't mention their name so much, but they're pretty much written into state law at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's the same thing with the Littles. What Little's been able to do with allocation of land in the state of Idaho, through his role as first lieutenant governor and then as governor, he's been able to set up a nice little area where he can do an awful lot of sheep ranching for very little money.
It's amazing how that works out. It's such a lucky coincidence for his family.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right. Well, it's a lucky coincidence for anybody who manages to get on the ground floor of that, which is one of those things we were talking about up there in Bonner County. You got a bunch of people up there trying to get in on the ground floor of this big Mike Lee, giving all those federal public lands back to the state. The right people in Bonner County will be in a good position to reallocate those resources in a somewhat selfish manner up there, won't they?
Well, I'm sure somebody will be. I mean, knowing how things go up here, I'm sure somebody has it all planned out and they've already got it worked out and they've kept it below the radar as much as possible. But that's kind of how stuff works up here. It always has, man. It's a good old boys club. And unless you were conceived in the back seat of your mother's car in the state of Idaho, you're not an Idahoan, so they don't really want your opinion.
Well, we got an awful lot of people up in Bonner County that have never been born in Idaho that seem to think they're going to have a say in what's coming up.
Yeah, that's true. We have quite a presence of retired LEOs and retired military up here. And, those are people that generally don't like being pushed around unfairly. So
right.
That's why you get a lot of friction up here because of that.
And actually, a lot of that independence coming in from the retired LEOs and the retired military is actually good, considering what certain other individuals are attempting to do with regards to their grift. There's a lot of people up there that all they are salesmen. They're pitchmen. They're up there to move property. They're up there to sell the latest, on the readout.
Yeah, there's a fair portion of that. There's a lot of manipulation going on now that we're not entirely sure who's doing it. But somebody outside the area is funding a lot of stuff, and not stuff that's publicly accessible. Not like funds that you sunshine report. But people are up here manipulating the county government to the best of their ability to make it favorable for development. And they seem to have completely infiltrated the local Republican Central Committee. It's probably 70-80% taken over by those people. And most of them, they don't even know they're being used. They're mostly good people. They have no idea they're being influenced and told what to do by somebody that's going to turn this place into Aspen.
Right?
Yeah.
Man. Hey, so Spencer, a little bit of input on what's going on up there. You are running for county clerk. What exactly is it the county clerk does?
Well, the main thing the county clerk does is the county clerk's the auditor for the county. If you look, it's controlled by Title 31, Idaho Title 31. Title 31 basically calls it doesn't really talk about clerk very much. It says auditor. So you're supposed to be watching all the money coming in, where it's coming from, making sure it's going to the right buckets, making sure it's going back out to the correct buckets. There's also other duties as far as clerk of the court, clerk for the commissioners, actually collecting the taxes and running the elections. Which running the elections is a pretty big deal, but it's just once every so often. The main thing is auditing, and that's the main thing that doesn't seem like it's getting done up here. And you can kind of tell it's not getting done, not from anything the clerk's doing, but because we've got one commissioner up here who has taken it upon herself to audit some of the county offices and some of the county departments. And boy, they don't like her, and they're doing everything they can to get rid of her. And she's a good person. She's a very good person. She's very experienced and very qualified to do the auditing. She's got an MBA. She's a professional auditor. She's a Six Sigma black belt. So she knows what she's doing when she's auditing stuff, and she's finding things. But they really want to get rid of her, and that kind of makes me question what's going on, and makes me question what I might find should I be elected. So it's kind of interesting.
I mean, you got one of those great jobs. Once every 2 years, you do count the ballots. And as some people have said, they don't care who casts the votes. They care who does the counting.
Well, and a lot of what's going on up here, I think, is around that. I don't know how much you guys know about, or if you remember. Have you ever heard of the Secretary of State project? You know what that is?
No.
So look it up sometime if you're interested. It's George Soros and Hillary Clinton got together and they created the Secretary of State project. And the reason they did that is because the Secretary of State is who certifies the elections in each state. So what they wanted to do was get that person elected that was favorable to them. So when the votes were counted, if it was a wobbler, if it could go one way or the other, they made sure it went in their direction. And at the county level here, this kind of smells like the same sort of thing, because the same group of people that are controlling the Republican Central Committee are pushing 3 candidates, including the one I'm running against. And the guy I'm running against, I had my first debate with him last night, and I was really surprised how unqualified he was. He talks that he's qualified. He was a Marine. I was a Marine too. Who cares? But he was basically a logistics guy. He was in the back, behind the lines, making sure that you have bullets and beans. That's what he did, okay? He's trying to extrapolate that, 30 years of doing that, into being qualified to run budgets and run elections and do the other duties of the county clerk. And it just kind of struck hollow last night when I was talking, or when we were doing our debate. And he sounded like a bureaucrat who's been a bureaucrat for 30 years, and we all know what those sound like. And he looked like a guy looking for a job as county clerk. And it didn't really make sense. It never has made sense to me why he was running. But it turns out our outgoing county clerk has put him up to this. He wants him in this position, which is kind of curious to me. Why would the outgoing clerk want this particular person in this position? This particular person who is being pushed forward by the Republican Central Committee, who wants development. It just kind of smells funny to me. It seems like maybe the outgoing clerk, I don't know, you're endorsing a guy who you're counting votes for. That just kind of stinks of impropriety, but it's not illegal. You can endorse somebody if you want to. That's free speech. I don't mind that, but maybe it might look a little better if he recused himself from counting votes for the person that he has put up for this job. And it seems like, and I haven't had any specific details. I've heard rumors. I don't want to propagate rumors, but I've heard there is something going on with the current clerk retiring, because it wasn't expected. We didn't expect this guy to retire. He's been around for 12 years. He generally had a good reputation until the last few years, and then something started falling apart. And it seems like there's some stuff going on in the background that is urging him to get out of the office. And so he just kind of rather suddenly said he's getting out, and here's the guy that I want you to have replace me. And it's, I don't know, it's just got a smell to it, man. And when I first moved up here, and Mike Rosedale, he's the current clerk, he was well thought of. I thought he did a good job. I thought he did a really good job. But in the last couple of years, something's changed in Mike. And there was a point for me where I knew something was going on with Mike, and I won't forget it, because Mike had, excuse me while I tell you a little story here. we had a fair director who was brought into the police department and questioned for missing money, missing cash at the fair. Lots of cash gets exchanged at the fair.
Oh yeah.
A couple of days after she got brought in for questioning, she was found dead. And there was still the question of, is there missing money? If you want to be really entertained, go look up the police report. It's the gal's name was Darcy Smith. If you know anything about police reports, if you've ever read a police report on a murder or a suicide, and you read this police report, it's just wrong. Everything about the report stinks. It's done at the 5th grade level. It's not done by a professional. If you have a firearm in a police report, how do you describe the firearm? Smith & Wesson model, whatever, serial number, whatever.
Oh, you get the details.
Yeah. This police report, the entire description of the handgun used in the shooting was a silver handgun. That's the whole description. So there's a lot of mystery around this, right? And a lot of it was financial related because there was accusations that this lady had been stealing. And I'm not saying she was stealing because there's no way to know if she was stealing because the information that would need to be brought forward to see if she was or wasn't stealing has never materialized.
Right.
But what did materialize about a year after she died, what materialized is someone within the clerk's office said, Mike has Darcy's laptop. What do you mean Mike has Darcy's laptop? Well, apparently Mike had that laptop in his desk drawer for over a year. This is her laptop she used for the fair. That would have financial information on it.
Right.
And we've never found out what was on that laptop. And the little moment that happened for me when I stopped trusting Mike was I got up in a county commissioner meeting and I asked directly, what's on the laptop? And his answer was he hadn't looked at it. So here's the chief auditor for the entire county has a piece of data in his desk, a laptop in his desk for someone who's been accused of being a thief, and he never looked at it? I mean, you lost me, man.
Right.
And not only did you not look at it, but you didn't turn it over to the authorities until somebody mentioned that you had it.
Yeah.
And and somebody has it now. I don't even know who has it. I still have never heard any financial data. How much money did the fair bring in cash before Darcy got there? How much money did the fair bring in while Darcy was there? How much money has the fair brought in since she's left? Is there any discrepancies there? Was this lady a crook? We don't know. The whole county still doesn't know. There are people still talking about this to this day. People say she was a thief. People say she wasn't a thief. It's quite the conundrum for trying to get any kind of actual information. And in the meantime, it could have been solved a long time ago with just a little revelation as far as here's the money flow, here's the cash flow. What did the cash flow look like? Did it change? We could clear this poor lady's name or, at least let the people in the county know what did or didn't happen. So that's when I kind of lost Mike. I kind of lost my respect for him. And it's kind of one of the reasons I'm running. Because if there is anything there, I don't think it'll take that much effort to find, I hope.
Yeah.
I'll try and see what I can find. I mean, I'm sure I can get at least some level of data from before, during, and after, and maybe bring some peace to the county, to the people that are still interested in this, which is quite a few of them. I mean, at the debate last night, I had multiple people ask me about it. When you get in, are you going to look into Darcy's stuff? Yes, I'm going to look into Darcy's stuff. One way or the other, either the county needs to get some relief knowing that, okay, yeah, something was missing, or her family needs to get some relief knowing that she didn't do anything wrong. It's got to go one way or the other. Either way, everybody deserves to know. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running. And the other is I don't want to allow, if possible, the Republican Central Committee that's being controlled by these moneyed interests at this point to just shove somebody into the office that seems to be okay with the current clerk, who I'm not really too enamored with at the moment. And sorry that was so long, but it takes a little bit to tell some of these stories. It's Bonner County drama, man.
All the stuff that happens over the back fence just coming loose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I guess where I see a lot of it too is with the land division. And we're talking a little bit about this is how they're proposing to put in more subdivisions or growth accounting and not accounting for like public services and stuff like that?
Yeah. So
Well,
from the county
yeah,
clerk's
no,
perspective, what do you consider a minor land division?
well, I don't have to consider it as anything. It's documented. It's 4 or less. It's when you take a parcel and you divide it up into, like, if you have a 20-acre parcel and you divide it up into 4 or 5, that's a maximum minor land division. Anything over 4, it becomes a, what's the name for it? There's another name for the ones that are above 4. And they're, hold on a second. It's, I wrote it down because I'll forget. It's a short plat. They call it a short plat. Between 5 and 10 is a short plat, and then anything over 10 is an actual subdivision. And what was happening up here is some folks, I don't know who, somebody figured out that they could do a minor land division, which is intended. It's the purpose of it is, I got 20 acres. My kids want to build a house on my 20 acres, and I carve off 5 acres for them. That's what it's for. What they were doing is they were taking advantage of it and chopping up properties as much as they could without having to pay for any infrastructure. So they weren't paying for road improvements or electrical improvements or sewer improvements, and they were getting a few extra houses on a piece of property without having to do the work and expend the costs that they should have. And so the county ended up paying for it. The taxpayers ended up paying for it.
So the way this basically worked was, short plat, you were talking 4 or so. And
But
then
short
after
plat's 5 to 10.
Okay, 5 to 10. And then they were taking that and breaking that down 5 to 10 in such a way that they never actually had to do the subdivision, even though that's what they were making in truth, all without the infrastructure.
Well, keep in mind what's important here for what I think is important here for the people that did this. When you do an MLD, when you do a minor land division, it's a very quick thing. You can get it done in a month, 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. If you do a short plat, if you're doing 5 or 10 pieces, if you're dividing it up into 5 or 10 pieces, then that can take 6 months, a year. But if you're doing a full-blown subdivision, you're talking over a year. And there's all kinds of things that can slow you down in the meantime. And it's like that on purpose so that this place doesn't look like LA County overnight. We don't want to have uncontrolled growth here. That's why we have it set up the way we do with the checks and balances, so the place doesn't look like a mess, so that we can retain the rural character that people move here for. And the developers were just figuring out how to get around it. And one of our county commissioners, the same one who did the audits, pretty much stopped it. And that's another reason why they don't like this person. That's another reason why they're running somebody against her. And they picked I thought this was hilarious. They picked a developer to run against her, which I thought was just fantastic. They've got a real estate agent running against me. This guy was a Marine, and then he got out of the Marine Corps, and he was a real estate agent. And near as I can tell, he was a real estate agent that never sold a house once. And then he decided he wanted to be county clerk. And the last person is a lawyer. So we've got a lawyer, a real estate agent, and a developer running for the 3 open county seats, all of which are being pushed by the local Republican Central Committee, all with the blessing of whoever's pulling their strings.
Wow.
Interesting. Huh.
And if any of that federal land up there gets sold off into the private market, how does that affect what's going on as far as maintaining that rural character of Bonner County?
I guess it would depend on how they zone it. Hopefully it's zoned Ag Forest 20 or greater, and then they can't really just chop it up into little subdivisions. I would imagine that, we all know who's going to end up with it. Whoever has the most money is going to end up with it, and then they're going to exploit it to the fullest extent of whatever laws apply. If IFG who ends up with it, I'm sure they'll just log the hell out of it, which, don't get me wrong, I don't mind the logging, and that's part of what we do up here. I love seeing the logging trucks, especially, when they're doing it responsibly, when they're not just clear cutting stuff to build something or just wipe a field out. The good logging that's done around here, it only looks bad for a year or two. Within 5 years, most people can't even tell the place has been logged because the new trees are coming up and it's beautiful. This is a renewable resource that we should be exploiting. it's a good thing for us to have logging up here. I don't mind that, but I don't really agree with how IFG does things, how Idaho Forest Group does things, because they've just got such a tight hold over everything that it's almost a monopoly. It pretty much is a monopoly. And I'm not saying anything bad about IFG. I don't think they're necessarily bad people, but anytime you have a monopoly, I mean, we all know what that does to the market. And it's just, it's kind of like, this is the price we're going to pay you for the trees, take it or leave it, or haul them to Oregon or haul them to Montana.
Right.
So that's probably who's going to end up with that land. Somebody like IFG, or maybe some mining companies will end up with it. I don't know. Well, probably not, since they don't like mines anymore. It's bad to have a mine now, I guess.
Well, that's an interesting discussion. Reason why is because there is a lot of mining up there, but most of it happens to be either in Montana or it's over in Oregon. You don't have a lot of it specifically in the panhandle between the two. I mean, it's mountains. You got rare earth minerals underneath all of that stuff that there's an awful lot of people want to get access to. We've talked about reopening mines along the Salmon River that, for molybdenum and other things related to battery manufacturing, nickel, and what's the other one, the purple? Anyway, but it's like there's a big push to open up mining in the state of Idaho right alongside the logging. We've had the conversation before, bring back the manly jobs for manly men.
I mean, not only that, but increased revenue for the state is I think a big hitting point for me. Is we should be exporting more as a state so we can provide better public services. Is kind of how I see it.
100%.
I mean, the land is there, and we talk about, improved wealth, improved, profits, not for the industries, not for, the corporations that, of course, are going to get their hands in on it early because they got the money, but the profits for the people who are doing the work, the profit for the communities that are supporting the people who are doing the work. That money needs to start circulating in the state of Idaho again, and as we say, rising tide lifts all boats. So it's like as soon as we can start getting people back to work, our young men back to work, and that's one of those, we talk about it all the time. What are we doing for our youth? What kind of future are we setting up if we don't give them jobs?
Well, we have to really make sure that as we're exploiting these resources in the state, which I'm in favor of doing, as we're exploiting these resources, we need to be having some level of tax come in from the resources that are exploited. If you get $5 billion worth of whatever out of the state of Idaho in profit into your company from extracting a resource, there should be some percentage of that comes back to the state. And I don't know what that percentage looks like. I don't know what is fair to the state and still, encourages people to have the mine and, mine the ores and generate the revenue. But there's got to be some percentage that comes back to the state. And with as much land as we have that hasn't been touched and exploited in any way for hundreds of years, it could be a pretty good chunk,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about, so thorium, plutonium, we got nuclear capable fissile materials here in the state, just waiting to be mined, uranium. All of this can be turned into energy in a short term. So we're looking at nuclear capability. As long as we don't blow the dams, we still have, significant hydropower. You're nodding your head, Spencer. What have you got about blowing the dams?
I am just baffled at these people that think blowing the dams is going to help something. The dams are there for a reason. All the ones I'm aware of anyways. I mean, they serve their purpose. The little fishies don't die. We have fish ladders for the fishies. We figured that out already. So don't tell me about the little fishies being murdered. Okay. What else is the problem? What other problem was created by the dams other than keeping the little fishies from going up the creek? I just don't see what the problem is. I mean, they generate power. They provide a reservoir for water. What else are we supposed to do with it? Just watch it go out into the ocean and waste it? Let's take hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars of effort that we took to build dams and blow it up to satisfy some stupid environmentalist. I mean, it's just insanity. Insanity.
Well, the other thing is a lot of these dams have been there 80, 90 years already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're well established. These are, whatever biome it was they originally disrupted, they've become something completely different at this point.
Absolutely.
Which means if you blow the dams, you're restructuring the entire biome. You're messing with weather patterns.
Yeah, at that
Yeah.
point.
I mean, these are literally the wooden shoe people from Holland, man. I mean, they just want to go beat their wooden shoes up against the dams. Maybe they should go live in Afghanistan. Maybe that kind of culture with that kind of technology level will be more what they're seeking. Maybe they'll be happy in an environment like that where there's no technology. I mean, these people that are protesting this stuff shouldn't be allowed to use light bulbs, let alone cell phones.
There's a legitimate argument there. That's a legitimate argument.
I like the idea of modernization. I think there's been advancements probably in the last 80, 90 years to probably make those dams run better. I've noticed some, like I know some, but I know there's some others that have been sitting there since 50s and they just haven't had any new turbines, nothing in them new. And so that I guess is my argument for that, is to create more energy from what we already have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Upgrade
100%, man. I mean, there's technology improvements that happen all the time. And we should be planning for this stuff. We should say, this is going to last 50 years, 100 years, whatever it is. And then we're going to update it. We're going to change it. And we should be piling away a little bit of a fund to pay for that. I mean, it's like the city here. You want to hear something funny? This is just beyond. So the city of Sandpoint, if you want an entertaining story, look up the city of Sandpoint's sewer system. The city of Sandpoint bought their sewer system. And I may get some of these dates wrong because I haven't studied up on it lately, but they bought their sewer system from the naval base, from Farragut Naval Base. It was a used sewer plant. So they bought a sewer plant from Farragut, right? And this is back in I want to say it was back in the 50s or 60s or something. And they've been running on that same sewer plant forever. I've been up here, I think 13, 14 years. That long ago, 13, 14 years ago, people were saying, man, we got to fix the sewer plant. It's going to cost $20 million. How are we going to get $20 million to fix the sewer plant? What do you think it's up to now? Because they still haven't done anything. It's over $250 million now. They got $250 million of repairs and renovations and improvements that they need to make to the sewage plant so that they don't have to keep putting the sewage in dump trucks and hauling it up the mountain and dumping it in a hole. You can't even make this up. But,
yeah, I got a friend up there in Bayview, working with the water infrastructure that they inherited from, the naval base up there, and he's talked about being able to bring it up to code, getting all of the documentation, cleaned up. Fortunately, he's a technical writer for aircraft. So it's like he already understood the necessities of the paperwork that goes into the details of how you need to structure, and document everything that needs to happen, because it's got to go through a series of processes, because you got to get the EPA to come in, because you're dealing with sewer on a natural lake. Army Corps of Engineers has to come in, take a look at what it is you got going on. And because it's wilderness land that you're next to, you're dealing with federal, state, and city issues. So it's like you got all of these layers of bureaucracy, and everything needs to be done just right. And the guy who runs for the job usually isn't technically qualified to do what needs to be done when he starts. His learning curve it's insane. Fortunately, Sean happened to have been, a skilled technical writer, so he understood technical writing of an engineering quality so that he could go in and actually, but yeah, I understand. It's insane, and it's like we got elected officials, who aren't getting paid much. The job is described like, hey, we just need you to put in 2-3 hours a week. It's like, no, not if you know what those individuals are actually tasked with. That is not a 2-hour a week sort of thing.
No, it's not. Those jobs there's a lot involved in that stuff. In my previous life, I used to build hospitals in California, which is, you want to talk about regulatory environment. There's a regulatory environment for you. But that experience serves me well now in the job that I'm looking to do, in the clerk job, because I'm used to dealing with the bureaucracy and the burdensomeness of a lot of this stuff and working my way through it. So that's fine. But when you're trying to solve a problem that's obvious and in everybody's face, a water problem, a sewage problem, and then all these little bureaucratic hurdles are placed in front of you, some of them are necessary, I'm sure. There's some stuff that's necessary. Don't dump the poo in the lake. We need to not dump the poo in the lake. I get that. But some of the stuff, like when they find a toad that only lives in this particular pond or whatever. Okay, maybe we got to relocate the toad, but we don't stop human progress for one silly little thing, which environmentalists, the blow up the dam people, to stop any kind of progress people, to stop the water, stop the sewage people. I've never been able to wrap my head around that mentality of just stopping progress. Instead of stopping, why don't you say, hey, let's do this instead? But usually their answer is do nothing or undo what you've already done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I completely understand, like, handling radioactive material in the right way and everything, making sure like lead doesn't get in the water. There's a couple high level things I'm like, yeah, we have to take care of the people, but yeah, there's a lot of bureaucratic, like the little toad thing. It's just like a hurdle just for the sake of a hurdle, and that's a lot of places where this needs to be, the red tape needs to be removed.
Remember how much forestry we shut down over an owl?
Oh, I remember that quite well. Yeah, I mean, environmental impact needs to be balanced with population impact and human impact.
And then it turned out the owl wasn't actually all that rare.
Yeah, and they're delicious from what I hear.
I've never had owl. We had Rocky Mountain oysters when I was a kid, but that was about it.
Oh.
Yeah, I grew up on a cattle ranch. We did 55-gallon drums of those things. You think I'm kidding?
No, I know you're not kidding. It's just one of those things. Well, what are you guys having for dinner tonight? We're having all the balls the steers had before up.
When we're out cutting them all, what do you think we ate? That's literally what we ate when we're out at camp cutting them. That's what you ate. I mean, get used to it or starve, I guess, Or if you don't like those, you can have rattlesnake, because there's rattlesnake. You go kill a rattlesnake and have a rattlesnake instead.
I'm lucky enough I didn't get many run-ins with rattlesnakes growing up. I ran over a couple, but never had like any real face-to-face big rattlesnake encounters.
That's when you need a good chef on the trail, because they can take those rattlesnakes and those steer nuts and actually make them edible.
They're perfectly edible as long as you fry them.
Yeah. Anything's edible as long as it's prepared properly. I'm sorry. Anything's edible as long as you prepare it properly.
That's fair.
What is it? Well-prepared squirrel is as good as poorly prepared beef any day of the week.
Squirrel is a fine meal if you know how to fix it. Have you ever had porcupine?
No, I have not, but I heard it's good.
You can eat porcupine raw, just like sushi. It's one of the best survival foods in the forest if you can find it.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you don't want to be eating raccoon raw.
No, do not eat raw. Porcupine's the only one you can eat raw that's out in the forest. Everything else you need to cook very well.
Yes.
Hmm.
Oh,
interesting. Okay.
You didn't know it was going there, did you? That's Spencer's little wheel of random facts.
I'll definitely keep that in mind because, you know, porcupines, it makes me curious as to they do have like the, you know, obviously the self-defense. And so it makes me curious to if that is because they're so like easily eaten if they didn't have it.
Yeah, Mother Nature works in strange ways, right?
It does. Yeah.
I'd admit this is an interesting conversation. I'm not used to this kind of conversation coming, but you know, we're looking at, you know, Idaho boys. We grew up here and military experience, you know, 2 Marines and an Army vet. Yeah. So yeah, we're a little bit rough around the edges here, but we know how to get stuff done, right?
Yeah, we do.
Well, if people let us get stuff done, or if we are able to put ourselves in a position where they can't say no to us getting stuff done, I mean, you know, I would really like to be of service to my county at least once. I would like to help. You know, when I built hospitals, the budgets were a mess when I started. And I saw a problem, and it took quite a bit of time, but by the time I was done, the budgets were as close to perfect as they could be. If they weren't perfect, it's because you made a mistake or you did something wrong. And I'd like to take that and apply it to the county. You know, maybe I can find a few bucks that's being wasted here or there. Maybe my job as auditor will uncover some stuff that saves our fellow taxpayers some money. You know, that would be nice. It'd be a bigger bonus if we could do it with fewer people. I don't know if that'll happen, but who knows? But anyways, I just want to get in there and see how things are and see how my skills can help improve it to help my fellow citizens. That's where my heart's at.
Yeah.
Put that E4 Mafia experience to work for the people.
What's that?
The E4 Mafia.
Oh yeah, the E4 Mafia. Yes, we are here for the people. Well, it's better than the general grade mafia. I mean,
right?
You know, we get these guys who, man, these are not bad people. You know, I don't think they're bad people. I think that they are so entrenched in their way of thinking from being in a bureaucracy for 30 years that's just what they are now. There is no thinking out of the box. There is only the box, and you have to stay in the box. You know, I pride myself in kicking the box apart and finding other ways to do things. You know, doing things that's in the box. We can hire robots to do that. You don't need a human with a brain to do that.
Yeah.
Or a big data center running AI stuff for, you know, whatever reason. You know, they're still limited to the box. They're still limited to that language model.
Yeah. Well, look at how much they're dumping into it. I mean, I don't know if you tried to buy a personal computer. Have you seen what's happening to the prices of personal computer components, memory, hard drives, things like that?
Oh yeah, it's all going up because of the demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
the data centers are sucking it all up. I mean, who was it? Who was the company? One of the companies just said they weren't selling to the public anymore because all of their future production had already been sucked up by data centers. So they're just going to quit selling to the public.
That's actually Micron.
Is it?
Micron and NVIDIA, I think, were, you know.
NVIDIA, that's what I was thinking of. NVIDIA.
They got this circular logic going on right now, where it's all money just changing hands between 3 major corporations.
NVIDIA doesn't actually make any semiconductors at all.
Right.
Micron or TSMC makes a lot more semiconductors. And so NVIDIA has made an agreement with Micron saying that we'll buy all of your AI data chips from now on. And we'll see how long that goes with the tensions in China and Taiwan and stuff like that.
Right.
I kind of do see NVIDIA moving more towards China personally. And I think that deal is just going to go bust, but that's just kind of my personal opinion, kind of like my foresight on it. If I'm betting man. So,
well, Spencer,
we need to stop. We need to stop letting that happen. We need to stop letting these people go overseas. And Trump has the right idea of tariffing them till they come back. Tariff them till they hurt and they come back. We need to have manufacturing here. We have to have manufacturing here. That is why we've got this middle class that's just dying. There's none of these blue collar jobs. I mean, man, you look back, 40s, 50s, actually 50s, 60s. You could have a guy who was a mechanic and his wife who was a waitress, and they had a perfectly decent house and 4 kids and a happy life. Try and do that today. It's impossible.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I don't even have kids because it's so expensive. It's just not plausible.
And the thing is when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, that type of life, that parent, the one who went to the shop to work and the one who went, left us to run the neighborhood on our bikes, till the sun came down, and the whole latchkey kid scenario. Here we've reached a point with regulations around child safety that level of freedom isn't afforded children these days. They don't have the opportunity to learn, from the school of hard knocks quite the way we did when we were growing up. We go out, we do great things all day long, come back with stories to tell or not. Sometimes dad would care, sometimes dad wouldn't, but you don't have that level, the amount of energy we spend protecting kids from stuff that is effectively imaginary at this point, and still trying to go out, earn an income so that we can put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, and put gas in the car so we can get them to the football games on time. And we're doing this on service wages. We're not doing it on industry. We're not building great big things anymore. It's like we're service workers. We're sitting on a phone talking to people.
Yeah, and I can't remember which idiot president it was that sold that crap to us, but we were going to have a service economy in the future.
It was Nixon.
Well, it's idiocy. You have to build things. You have to. There's no shortcut around that. You have to have industry and you have to build things. I don't know why this is difficult to understand.
Right.
Well, especially for politicians. They know it.
It's a national security issue.
Absolutely.
Our dependency on foreign manufacturing right now is so obscene. What happens when China says, yep, we're not making stuff for you anymore. India, we're not making stuff for you anymore.
Well, that would be okay. I don't want anything from India.
That's fair.
I've seen how they make stuff.
Well, at the very least, though, it might kickstart us to American manufacturing bring it back. At the very least, which is it's but that's part of my shtick of we gotta get ahead of it. There could be at any point in time where China or these other exporters to America or where we bring all our stuff from, they're gonna just cut off the faucet and be like, nah, no more. And then what are we gonna then we're gonna have to do it anyway. So may as well start.
Yeah, I think Trump's on the right path with the tariffs. I think the tariffs need to be tailored and just honed to the point where it makes more sense to make it here. It costs more money to bring whatever it is in from the outside, and maybe that starts with microchips and computer-based stuff and I don't know, fuzzy dogs that they sell at Walmart. Who knows? But we got to do it. I mean, we have to.
It's an interesting balance that we need to make. Reason why is because we do need the tariffs. The tariffs represent money revenue for the U.S. And we've been doing the tariffs since the founding fathers. Things that were coming in from out of state and even some things we were manufacturing. Whiskey tax, the whiskey rebellion back in 1790s. But we need to reduce the cost of doing business here in the United States. It's one of the reasons why they ended up pushing out at the time they did, because the EPA came along and started making manufacturing and industry expensive.
Well, that's more putting the environment over the population. And I love the environment too, man. I live in the middle of a beautiful forest. I don't want it ruined. I want it to be preserved. I want it to be protected. But you have to balance people with that. I mean, there's a medium in there. You know, we don't have to go completely nuts all the other direction, which is what the EPA did. You know, I mean, I don't know if anybody watched the I can't remember the current EPA guy's thing, or EPA guy's name, but he did a press conference and he's talking about the elimination of the rules on diesel engines. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It was great. The reporter's like, well, what about, and he said, it doesn't exist anymore. There's no what if or anything. It just doesn't exist anymore. We shouldn't have done it. Now it's gone. Perfect. Do more of that.
Yeah, we didn't actually save that much.
Yeah,
but I mean, if we're going back, let's bring back Aquanet, man.
Yeah, let's bring back lawn darts. You know, it'll help.
Yes,
you know,
yes, lawn darts.
Yes. You know, take warning labels off of everything. You think there's too many people? Get rid of all the warning labels. I mean, it's just going to sort itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't really argue with it.
You can't. I mean, we've all been in the army long or in the military long enough to look at those people that came in with us and went, they needed to take the bubble wrapping off of you as a kid, man. Because yeah.
The people who need warning labels. Forget about the products. Those people needed warning labels. Hey, you know, we had a lady at the town hall last night, and she was very passionate. She was extraordinarily passionate about her particular thing. Unfortunately, she interrupted the meeting being so passionate about it, and I wish I would have known that. You know, could have at least a heads up, maybe not a warning label, but a heads up. But, you know, some people, you know, you'd like to see coming.
Yeah.
And I don't think we usually do.
Oh, yeah. Bobby agrees with you. Absolutely. Get rid of the warning labels. But yeah, we do need to take back, you know, people actually learning safety, risk management from an aware position as opposed to just, oh, the label says don't do that.
Well, it's worse than that because schools don't teach you how to think anymore. They haven't for a long time.
Right.
Schools teach you how to memorize things. And that is a useless skill. It's literally a useless skill. We need to go back to teaching kids how to think. And if that means gutting the schools, gut them. Get rid of everybody whose their mindset is to teach this memorization and passing tests. Teach the kids how to think. Teach them how to troubleshoot. You wouldn't believe how many simple things, car-related, machine, gun-related, that I fix that are just so simple.
Oh, yeah.
But the person that brings it to me isn't able to think about how the thing functions and why it's not functioning anymore. They give up. I push the button.
Pull it apart, put it together.
Yeah, I pushed the button and the thing didn't make the noise, so it's broken. Can you fix it? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. You can pay me to fix that. I mean, I'm happy to do that. But these people have lost the ability to, I mean, how many people do you know that are capable of changing the oil in their car or changing a tire on a car? I mean, that's something that every single adult should be able to do. I don't care if you can afford to have somebody else do it. Great, cool. Pay somebody else to do it. But you should know how.
So what I will say about this, I'm a big fan of public education, but I do see that it needs to be reformed. I do see that there's a major issue with how we're doing it currently. And teaching like media literacy or, troubleshooting skills, stuff like this, I think should be very core and inherent into the school itself, school system, mostly because we do teach, like you're saying, memorization, or, it goes into like these different levels of like indoctrination, memorization, just not teaching people how to be free thinkers. And I think that's been lost on our school system. But I do think that we can reform the public schools, because I'm not a huge fan of public money going to private. Just how it is I'm not a huge fan of any section, really.
Well, one of the things that we look at when the federal government took over education, was we started buying books from McGraw-Hill and Peterson. And it's like all the education started coming from these effectively mandated manuscripts that were being created for students across the nation. And we were supposed to read a book from one of these organizations for every class. We took out the hands-on, we took out shop classes, we took out metal, we took out, mechanics, we took out the things that helped a young person be successful in their community.
Yeah.
And,
what you got, Spencer?
Who runs those companies? Who owns those companies, those book companies? Look into that. Look into who owns them. We
know.
Yeah. All right.
Maxine's dad actually was a significant shareholder in McGraw-Hill.
Who died under completely normal circumstances.
On a yacht.
After getting rich, selling books nationwide, through a mandatory program through a federal agency. Yeah.
What does Maxine, or what does Ghislaine Maxwell's sister do for a living? Anybody know?
No, I don't.
You guys are going to love this one. She's got the company who writes the software for the CIA and the FBI that tracks all the data.
Interesting.
Makes sense. Fascinating.
That tracks.
Look her up. She's pretty interesting character too. Back on the education thing, just because I have like this weird thing about it, I'm going to mention something that to me is just ridiculous. So in my face, or at least for me, and should be in other people's faces too. What are pyramids in Egypt for? Why do they teach the kids in school what a pyramid is? What are they there for?
If I'm not mistaken, like tombs. But
yeah,
there's never
tombs,
been a
right?
body.
That's what they tell the kids in school.
It was a significant amount of resources that was stored, put into a burial crypt. It was a monument to ego. But it's like one of the things we were taught in school was grain storage. It was, against future use.
So how many bodies have ever been found in pyramids?
5.
None, not one ever. There's never been a body found in a pyramid. They've all been found in the Valley of the Kings, which is nearby. The pyramids, no matter what, there's different theories of what they were for. The current guy who has the best theory, guy who dedicated his life to figuring it out, he's still there. He still looks at this stuff. Pretty fascinating theory. And mechanically, everything this guy came up with actually checks out. He's actually had academics from prestigious universities agree with his theory on what the pyramids were for. So the two big pyramids were for making acid, hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid. And the third big pyramid was for making bases to neutralize the acids. This was for processing mineral ores and making fertilizer. And there's, to this day, still residue inside those pyramids from those chemical processes. And it's been proven. It's not, the chemical residue from those processes is still in those pyramids. And the reason I bring this up isn't just to say, oh, this is what the pyramids were for. It's because the schools are teaching children, impressionable children, that this giant, just monstrous achievement of mankind was a tomb, which has got to be one of the most boring things on the planet. Why wouldn't you teach a young, impressionable mind that either we don't know, or here's this cool theory about them making chemicals, maybe get their mind going a little bit instead of just turning off the thought. And I think a lot of what they do just turns off the thought and turns them into, instead of intelligent contributing citizens, it turns them into potential good workers. And I think it's a crime against the kids. I think it's a really horrible way to treat the kids. They're bright, impressionable little vessels that we need to nourish, and the school system's just not doing it for them. And I'm all for fixing it.
That's one thing Bobby brings up is, we send people to school for 12 years and we put them in community college and we got to send them to remedial courses. Yeah. 50 years ago, we were teaching Latin and Greek in, 10th grade, 8th grade. It wasn't unusual for people graduating high school, knowing a dead language or, one or two, a spattering of foreign languages. Now it's like we get done and we have to teach them English just to go to college.
Yeah. And then we send them to college and we give them these low interest loans for these monumental tuitions that the colleges are charging now. And these poor kids are paying it off for the rest of their lives in some cases. The amount of money that these colleges are charging for an education is directly correlated to the fact that the money is available in loans to the students. Well, we can give them a $50,000 loan, so we'll charge them $50,000. It doesn't have anything to do with the education they're getting. It's just what they can extract out of them. That's, we don't live in a production economy. We live in an extraction economy, and the economy does everything it can every day to extract wealth from every single person that's not part of the class that's doing the extracting.
Yep.
And it should be stopped. I don't know how you stop it, but I mean, at least I see it, and you guys see it, so we should work on stopping it.
And blame communism.
James, we can't blame communism. We live in a capitalist society.
I blame communism.
Yeah, it's not communism. Communism it's not communism, man. This is just pure exploitation.
Oh, it's extractionism.
Yeah, and that's one of my points that I usually bring up with like the billionaires and how they extract all this wealth. Like, they worked on deindustrialization and bought all this land over in these third world countries, and now we're a service-based country here in America, and it's just extracting it whatever else they can. And you see it especially in my mind when I'm looking at when they're trying to extract the littlest amount is like, have you heard of Kalshi or poly markets or anything in that nature?
Yeah.
So essentially I see those as micro, they're just taking whatever little bit else they can from somebody, just a little bit more extraction, make it bad.
Is that last 1% that they got left beyond, it's just,
And this goes back to you'll own nothing and be happy, where we're paying subscriptions for things, for everything. They're charging subscriptions for features on cars. I mean, I use QuickBooks at my business. I'm perfectly fine. I don't like QuickBooks, but it works. Okay. That's what you have to use because that's what the accountants use. So that's what you get stuck using. But they have tried so hard to get me off of the version installed on my computer and get me into the cloud. And I've tried it and paid their subscription, and it's horrible. I don't know how people put up with this stuff.
Yeah.
I used to do IT stuff for a living, and that is whatever happened to selling somebody a good product, being proud of what you sold them, and having them be so happy with the product that when eventually it does need to be replacement, they come to you to replace it. Now, greed has completely taken that chain over, and they don't really care if you're happy with the product. They just want you to need the product and have to buy the product for your life.
Well, we ran into that problem into the 70s when marketing, the financialists, started learning the concept of planned obsolescence.
Yep.
Nothing's good for longer than 5 years. That's a client that comes back in 5 years. We've seen it happen with the medical industry. A cured client is no longer a revenue generator.
Right.
So it's like all of our business models that we currently use have no basis in quality or longevity. It's, going back to Fight Club, it's IKEA of everything, just assembled, put together trash that lasts 2 years before you go back and have to buy it all over again.
Yeah. And that's not, and I don't think that's necessary. I don't think any of this planned obsolescence is necessary. You can make a good product that lasts for 50 years and still have a good business and still make money. Okay, maybe you only buy 1 yacht instead of 2 yachts, or you have 3 houses instead of 5 houses. But at some point it has to be enough. And, I'm not a communist. I'm not against making money. But at some point, you have to at least consider who you're selling stuff to and the value that you're providing to them, if you're providing them a value. Look at Wall Street. What value do they provide? Other than just a massive extraction machine for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, what does any of this have to do with being a county clerk?
sorry.
Monologuing.
Well, at the end of the day, county clerk is one of those that's, you still have a vital role in what goes on in the schools, because you're looking at levies, you're looking at property taxes. You're looking at the little things that subsidize the extra things, the extracurricular activities after school.
Yeah. Well, as county clerk, the best I can do is just make sure it runs as efficient and transparent as possible. That's really what my role would be. Make sure everything's transparent, efficient, and that people don't feel like, there's a black hole where they stick money. I want any citizen in the county, I paid $5,000 in property taxes. Okay, man, here's where your property taxes went. This is how we spent your money. At this point in this county, we can't get any levies passed because the local Republican Census Committee is against any levy for any reason.
Right.
They still get some of them through. They still get some of the school ones through, but like the ones that they've been picking on really hard, are the fire levies. Our fire departments are run by levies, and we have a lot of fire danger up here. And this year is going to be really bad for fire danger because we haven't had enough snow and rain. And they've got the fire departments down to the point where they're kind of barely there. They're not growing to accommodate the growth in the area. The fire departments haven't been. They're the same levels of staffing or lower. Some of them, they've closed fire stations here. So we're growing, we're closing fire stations, we're reducing services. What's going to happen when there's a really big fire here?
We've seen that.
In Hawaii, we've seen that, right?
Hawaii, well, the Palisades in California.
Yeah, there too.
Watched entire communities.
Yeah, magically, after all these houses burned down, now developers get to go in and buy these burned up properties, and now they couldn't buy the people out, so. Hawaii, and they burn them out. And by reducing the fire staff up here, I don't know,
who's stopping the fire?
It just seems contrary to, we pay taxes for public services. What's the primary public service we want? We want roads, we want cops, and we want firemen, right? Water. That's what we want. And they're not paying one of the critical legs of that. They're not paying the firemen. They're making these guys suffer. And I see it because, full disclosure here, I actually do side work for the fire department in IT consulting for a couple of fire departments up here. So I get to see these guys. These are not people living in luxury off the taxpayer dime. No. They're taking every penny that they're given and spending it as carefully as they can to get the most out of it. I don't know why the Republican committee up here is so against growing the departments in concert with the population growing. And they seem to be purposely crippling it. And I haven't been able to figure out why. Maybe I sound a little paranoid with the fire stuff and burning the houses down stuff, but man, I don't know what they're doing. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense at all.
It's been great having you on tonight, Spence. We're at an hour 20 here now.
Yeah, we could probably go all night, to be honest with you.
Oh, we could. Nothing like 3 old vets, talking about good old times and what's happening with the world around us.
Yeah.
What are we going to leave for the next generation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a viable thought for any, caring human being. How can I leave the world better for my kids? I want to leave it better for my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to leave it better for my kids than my parents left it for me. Damn straight.
100%.
Yep,
100%, man.
That's what it is. Everything we do is either giving to the next 7 generations or it's taking away from it. And right now we see an awful lot of people taken away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very short-sighted people.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
I
on.
really appreciate you gentlemen having me on. Thanks for letting me spout off stuff.
More than welcome.
It was great having you on. So Spencer, go ahead. Give us your spiel. How can people find out more about you?
Just Hutchings for Idaho. HUTCHINGS, the number 4 Idaho, hutchingsforidaho.com. That's for my website. It's the easiest place to see anything.
Okay.
Awesome.
James, come on. It wasn't that bad, man. Although admittedly a bunch of sober vets, we can get pretty boring sometimes. Yeah.
It's after work and I resisted having a beer, so you're welcome.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have one now.
Me too.
You too, Spencer.
All right, you guys
Take
have
care.
a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spencer. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.